What's up YouTube? This is John Helm with Helm Woodshop and Smithy, back with another knife making video. I have a new project planned. It's a big project. I'm really excited about it. I'm even a little apprehensive about it, which is good because it means I'm going to be challenging myself. And I'll either make something awesome or I will fail and learn a bunch of lessons. But before I can get to that, there's something else that I need to do. If you watch my first video series, it was 9 episodes long and it resulted in this, which is a cable Damascus everyday carry knife that I screwed up on. And this knife build was cursed. Apparently, every step I feel like it was fighting me and it was winning. Slowly but surely, a war of attrition. But when I clamped it up in the caulking gun, that was the nail in the coffin. I suffered an edge roll here just from a piece of wood. So obviously this isn't hardened or it was over tempered. And also I had a drill bit slip and screw up my handle. Now both these issues are potentially fixable, but I don't know how it's gonna work out until I try it. So that's what I'm gonna do today. So the first order of business is determining what exactly happened to make this edge not hard like it should be. And there are a few potential causes for this. Now this whole blade went through 3 forge welds. First to forge weld the cable, then I took the cable, forged it out into bars, stacked it, forge weld those together, and then I did a sand my billet out of it where I forge welded mild steel onto the sides. So I could have potentially burned up too much carbon, and now this steel has to be hardened in water, or it could not be hardenable at all. If that's the case, if I try to file this down, I'll never find hardened steel. It could also be that while I was grinding it, I overheated the edge, got it too hot, and softened the steel right there. If that is the case, when I file this edge off, I'll hit hard steel just underneath it. So that's what I'm hoping happens. So let's put it in the vise and take this edge off with a file and see what we find. Oh, it's very soft. Well, unfortunately, this file cuts right into that steel. There's a tiny hardened piece at the very, very tip. Everything else, it just saws right through. This tells me that tempering wasn't the issue, hardening was the issue. So, we're gonna have to go back into the forge. Now, before I can go into the forge and reheat treat this blade, I need to figure out how to get this handle off. Now, it was going to be hard because I didn't want to overheat the blade if there was nice hard steel behind that edge, but there's not. So I can just throw the whole thing in the forge and burn the wood off. All the epoxy will be gone. I'll be able to save these pieces. They'll just need a little bit of polishing, and then we can reheat and quench our blade. I think I'm going to go straight to water this time. I dunked it in oil last time and it obviously didn't work very well. So that's our next best option. Epoxy already let go, and the butt cap came right off. Dude, my hairdryer sounds like it's about to have a heart attack. Might be time to get a new one. Well, that went really well. As you can see, I got all 3 pieces off of there. They all appear to be undamaged, except for this little nook that I drilled out when I had my drill bit off center from the tang. That's not a huge deal. It isn't that deep. I just need to make sure it doesn't have any sharp corners on it so we don't have any stress risers on the tang. Aside from that, I should have plenty of tang left. This is a small knife. The tang's not going to see a huge amount of stress anyway. And if it is, then you're misusing the knife. You should have had something bigger. So now we'll do 3 normalizing cycles and then I'll quench it in water, which is scary. Okay, first normalizing cycle. Now you might be wondering, why are you going straight to a water quench instead of trying it in oil again? And the reason for that is, well, first of all, I tried oil before and apparently it didn't work. Doesn't mean it wouldn't work this time. I could have done something wrong, not had it quite hot enough, or it could have just been over tempered. But I don't want to have to quench the blade more times than is absolutely necessary. It's already been quenched once. Going in for a second one is already going to be really stressful. if I have to do an oil quench and then subsequently it doesn't work and I have to do a water quench afterwards, that's just going to be way too much stress. And the likelihood of me getting delaminations or warp or a crack is much higher. It's already going to be pretty hot going straight into water, but hopefully it'll work out. Now, when you're doing your normalizing cycles, you want to have a slightly lower temperature each time you heat it. So the first heat in the lighting in my shop, I go for where it is just starting to look orange. The second heat, I want to get it just before it turns orange. It's sort of a bright red color. And then the last heat, I'll try to get it just before it's a cherry red color, so it's slightly a dull red. Now, this might be different in your shop with your lighting situation and your eyes. Everyone sees things slightly different. And the last normalizing cycle. And now I'm ready to heat treat. So, since I'm going to do a water quench, and this knife has already been ground to shape, it's pretty thin, I think I'm just going to do an edge quench on it. That way I can alleviate some of the risk of having a warp in my spine. If you get a warp in your bevel, that's okay, you can grind it out. Your knife will be slightly smaller, but bladesmiths don't make mistakes, they just make smaller knives. You get a warp in your spine, then now you have a real problem on your hands. Well, it's straight, and it looks like it's hardened. Let's check it with a file. I don't see any delaminations. It looks pretty nice and straight. There's maybe a slight bow right here, but that's nothing that can't be ground out. And look how pretty the pattern is after heat treat. And the moment of truth. It is not hard. It is not hard. Well, crap. The cable Damascus knife strikes again. So if this was hardenable steel, it definitely would have gotten hard with what I just did. I heated it up. It was actually a little bit hotter than I wanted it at the tip, and then I quenched it in water. If there was carbon in this enough to harden, it would be hard right now, and it is not. So this is a cool looking letter opener. After a close inspection of the blade, I decided I can't even make a letter opener out of it, or if I could, it wouldn't be worth the trouble, because you can see it is super warped. Straight out of the quench it was nice and straight, but I guess as it continued to cool, it developed this warp. It's not worth the trouble to try to get out and make a letter opener. Plus, at this point, I'm pretty sure God doesn't want me making this knife. So this is gonna go in the trash, and I'm just gonna have to start from scratch and make a new one. No biggie, I learned a lot, I have a lot more experience now, and now I think I'll be able to succeed in making it. Let's talk about those lessons that I learned though, so that you can learn them without having to go through all the hardship that I did. First off, if you're gonna make cable Damascus, just make a piece of cable Damascus. Don't try to do Sanmai, don't make cable Damascus and then put it into a stacked billet and then do a Sanmai. It's just too much forge welding. I don't know what the carbon content was in the cable originally, but you're definitely able to burn it down by doing too much forge welding. Even if you just get a couple of sparks here and there, it's too much for this steel. Other cables might be different, but at least for the one that I have here in my shop, that is the case. The biggest lesson I probably learned though is know when to call it quits and start over. I ran into so many issues making this knife, and I just kept chasing them and fixing this and fixing that. And you can do that to a certain extent, but once you heated up the steel too many times, or once you just started spending an inordinate amount of time working on a little project like this that normally would take me a day, maybe 2 days at the most if I was really careful and trying to make it pretty, you're just burning daylight. There's no point. Just start from scratch, and it'll go better next time. So, sorry for such a short video, but the cool news is I can go ahead and get started on the big project that I was going to do after this anyway. And then when I'm done with that, I'll go ahead and make another cable blade and send it off to my friend Nate. Hopefully he's not in a hurry to get it. Until next time, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and thank you for joining me. Y'all have a good one.